on.
Dito may matinong usapan para sa maunlad na bayan, Luzon, Visayas at Mindanao. Buong mundo kasali ka. Dito rinig boses ng masa, magkakaiba ngunit isa. Ate, kuya at mga beks, bata, matanda, kasali ka. Halika na't makinig sa DZUP 1602. Dayon at makinig sa DZUP 1602. Kasali ka. Dito harapin ang sama-sama mga isyu ng ating lipunan, ang ating magagawa para sa bayan. Kasali ka. Halika na't makinig sa DZUP 1602. Dayon at makinig sa DZUP 1602. Kasali ka.
Pagpapala natin, mapagpalaya't malayang bukas kamtin, tinggin, tinigatindig na bayan, lakas ng sama-samang paghakbang, ikaw at ako, kasali tayo.
Halika na't makinig sa DZUP 1602. Dayon at makinig sa DZUP 1602. Ikaw ako, tayo sa DZUP 1602. Kasali ka.
Ang estasyong ito ay matatag na katuwang ng kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas, nagdiriwang ng 50 taon ng matatag at tapat na pamamahayag.
Halos 3 taon na ang nakalipas nung magsimula ang malawakang lockdown dulot ng pandemya. Kitagal na noong huli tayo'y naging malaya, nakikipagsalamuha at nakakasama ang ating mga kaklase at kaibigan. Parang panaginip na lamang ang panahon noong hindi natin kinatatakutan ng COVID-19. Ngayon, para na tayong nakakulong sa isang lugar na binubuo lamang ng pader ng ating mga silid. Kaugnay nito, halos 6 na buwan na ang nakalipas noong unang narinig namin ang mga boses ng mga nasa Malabon na higit din na naapektuhan ng pandemya. Base sa kanilang mga kwento, hindi lahat ng kabataan ay nabibigyan ng pagkakataong makapag-aral, makapagbasa, o kahit man lang makakain ng sapat at masustansya. Dito, nabuksan ng aming mga mata na siyang nagsimulang lumikha ng mga ideya na makapagbibigay serbisyo sa komunidad ng Barangay Concepcion sa lungsod ng Malabon. Halos 9 na linggo na rin ang aming ginugol upang makapaghanda ng mga materyales na makatutulong sa pag-aaral at pagbibigay motibasyon sa mga kabataan na magbasa at matutong makapaghanda ng mga masusustansyang pagkain. Dito, nabuhayan ang aming proyektong nakatuon sa pagtulong sa mga kabataan at sa kanilang mga magulang at tagapag-alaga. Dito, naisakatuparan ang malabon na pitit sa edukasyon, kaisipan at kalusugan para sa kabataan. Nagsimula bilang isang panungkala at planong konsepto na kalaunan ay naging isang konkretong proyekto. Binubuo ng 4 na bahagi. Unang-una rito, ang Aksyon Malabon, kaisipan at kalusugan para sa kabataan, na nakatutok sa pagbuo at pagturo ng mga inihandang module para sa mga batang mag-aaral sa pamamagitan ng 2 online na sesyon. Kalakip ng mga sesyon na ito ay ang webinar na 3Ps o nasa pag-uunawa sa pagbabasa ang pag-asa at It's a Pact, palakasin ang kalusugan ng tahanan. Panghuli ay ang culminating session ng aming proyekto, ang Itbulaga, One for All for One. Bagaman hindi naging madali ang buong proseso, ito ay naging posible dahil sa walang hintong pagsisikap ng bawat miyembro ng pangkat NSTP LTS NO4 at sa walang sawang paggabay ni Sir Allen Jeffrey Saraza at sa tulong ni na Miss Jeline Levantino at Kagawad Eduardo Antoja Jr. Bukod dito, hindi magiging makabuluhan ang proyekto kung hindi dahil sa tulong na aming natanggap mula sa iba't ibang tao, kapamilya, kaibigan at kakilala. Naghawak kamay at nagkapit-bisig ang lahat upang masilayan ang napakalaking ngiti ng isang Malabonian. Malabon na piti. Sa unang bigkas at rinig, ay parang hinihiling lamang na sana'y masiyahan at mabusog ang lahat sa munting handog ng pangkat. Ngunit, ang katotohanan ay hinihiling namin na sana'y mabusog kayo ng pagmamahal na buong pusong ipinadama ng mga Lasalliano. Sa libo-libong mga duda, ang pagtulong sa kapwa ay naisigurado. At natitiyak namin hindi ito ang hudyat ng pagtatapos. Dahil, habang may Lasalliano, may pusong handang tumulong sa bawat Pilipino. Ikaw, ano ang kwentong NSTP?
At first, NSTP seems to be an obligatory task, a requirement, a constitutional duty they need to fulfill. They need to wake up early in the morning, thinking that it's just an ordinary day to go through. Undertakings seem to be a routine. However, with pure intentions and clear understanding of the task at hand, something changed. Bricks and sands are not considered as materials that burdens the students, but those so-called burdens are now treated as the aspirations of the community. Brick by brick, they intricately place them to form a solid foundation for a better tomorrow. Every brushstrokes sparks imagination and creativity for the community. Trees are planted to secure and nourish future generations. Books and stories come alive to spark hope to the thriving community. A few simple strides go a long mile. A treacherous terrain under the scorching heat of the sun, they all seem not to mind as the anticipation grows. As these students go inch closer and closer to perform their task, a sense of optimism of something better awaits them. And when they reach the solace place, a glance of the community offers a cool reminder that their presence alone can become so meaningful to countless individuals. Such simple human gestures from that moment can be such a life-changing experience. This is NSTP in USD. Program that strives for noble causes, speaks of empowerment, embodies participatory development, hard work, passion, compassion, and commitment. Like the sands you sifted to produce fine grains, ultimately it inspires fine-tuning of one's personality. NSTP teach lessons in life that textbooks cannot provide. And this all began with a vision to fulfill the aspirations of the partner community. A program spawned forth that captures limitless possibilities, providing a gleam of hope that truly uplifts the collective spirit of the village. A program that counts purely on the talent, energy, enthusiasm of the students in the partner communities. This is when you, Tomasian students, will come to realize the high significance of what you do becomes a huge life-altering experiences to the multitude of individuals who come to touch lives with. Undeniably, you, NSTP students of UST, has all the power within to spark hope, ignite change, and transform lives. This, with all certainty, will resonate through time. A legacy we want to leave that will surely echo in their minds.
The UPOU Networks is the repository of educational resources that are produced by the University of the Philippines Open University. The UPOU Networks has the following sections: UPOU Commons, UPOU Live, and UPOU Mix. The UPOU Commons contains open educational resources in different formats, including videos on various topics. UPOU Commons also has On Record, which contains podcast or audio stream version of the videos. Publications has e-journals, books and coffee table books, monograph series, and resource-based course package. All the educational resources in UPOU Commons have the Creative Commons license. UPOU Live features the webinars and university events streamed on real time. It has the online chat that gives viewers the chance to interact with the featured speakers. UPOU Mix, on the other hand, contains multimedia productions of the university that are copyrighted. To access UPOU networks, go to networks.upou.edu.ph.
Sa iba kundi sa iyo at sa akin ang simula ng pagbabago. Panahon na para bumangon at paikutin muli ng tama ang mundo. Suliranin ng ating lipunan, unti-unting magagawan ng paraan. Sa bagong siglo na ito ng ating mga buhay, tayo'y magsama-sama. Bigyang liwanag ang daan, maging gabay sa lipunan, kailangan ng iyong kamay.
Halika na kapwa Pilipino, halika na kapwa isko at iska.
Taas kamay ang mga bagong bayani, sa harap ng pagsubok, huwag kang susuko. Bigyan ng boses ang sigaw ng masa, ang bagong pag-asa ay mula sa'yo, mula sa'yo, mula sa'yo. Panibagong pag-asa ay mula sa'yo. Ang armas mo ay ang iyong natutunan laban sa karahasan. Ang iyong sandata ay serbisyong sasakip sa mamamayan mula sa kahirapan. Halika na, kapwa mandirigma, magtagumpay kapwa isko at iska. Taas kamay ang mga bagong bayani, sa harap ng pagsubok, huwag kang susuko. Bigyan ng boses ang sigaw ng masa, ang bagong pag-asa ay mula sa'yo, mula sa'yo, mula sa'yo. Panibagong pag-asa ay mula sa'yo, mula sa'yo, mula sa'yo. Taas kamay ang mga bagong bayani, sa harap
when the only notion constant is change, when information is obtainable with a single click of the mouse or a tap of a screen, humans seem to be at the center of it all, making them in sync with the changes, in constant motion. This is not limited to those living in cities whose hands seldom part with their gadgets. In rural areas, the innovations and discoveries in technologies are used to ease lives and bridge gaps in knowledge, skills, and practices. With the new knowledge and information being created, reproduced, and shared at a rapid pace, people constantly need to retool themselves to keep up with continuously changing work requirements. In today's digital age, people need to learn how to learn and learn anywhere and anytime. The University of the Philippines Open University, the fifth constituent unit of the University of the Philippines system, provides opportunities for people to pursue further studies through open and distance e-learning. In February 23, 1995, the University of the Philippines Open University was established. It is mandated to provide Filipinos all over the world wider access to quality higher education through open and distance e-learning, or ODEL. UPOU now offers various degree programs to learners located in more than 70 countries all over the world. These programs are under the Faculty of Education, the Faculty of Information and Communication Studies, and the Faculty of Management and Development Studies. UPOU also offers continuing education courses and massive open and distance e-learning courses. UPOU uses various information and communication technologies, computer programs and applications to deliver instructional content and connect teachers and learners all over the world. Now more than ever, UPOU continues to transcend borders and break barriers through constant generation of knowledge and open exchange of ideas. It persistently tries new mechanisms to reach a larger number of learners. It perseveres in mentoring learners who shall be change agents, equipped to participate in the co-creation of knowledge for the benefit of Filipino communities everywhere. True to its mission, UPOU shall continue to reinvent itself to provide 21st century education in an increasingly open world.
Ang UP Mindanao NSTP was established in 2002. So way back then, the Office of Extension and Community Service was created on that same year by virtue of a BOR resolution with an added function, the implementation of NSTP on campus. Yung memorable recollection that I have on the implementation of the program is that usually we do the session on a Saturday with the first batch of students of UP Mindanao. So the night before, we brainstorm the topics that we will discuss the day after. So minsan inaabot kami ng almost midnight or early morning. Fortunately, we were able to survive the first year of implementation, and then later on we made it as a template, and then we were working hand in hand with the UP Los Baños, Ugnayan and Pahinuan. They helped us in the implementation of the literacy service, and our previous partnership with the Philippine Eagle and our presence in the UP Mindanao Land Grant also was contributory to becoming out of the CWTS, and then eventually the university decided to devolve it to the colleges. The program, we started actually offering LTS and CWTS, but the direction that we are going right now to some sort of align the NSTP implementation of UP Mindanao to what is mandated by law, which is to offer the ROTC and the other components.
At the moment, NSTP is housed as one of the programs under the Office of Extension and Community Service. We are planning to create a separate NSTP office with its director and coordinators for the different components. I'd like to thank the assistance of Prof. Dennis Kilala, UP Diliman NSTP Director, who facilitated the workshop for writing the syllabi for NSTP, especially the LTS and CWTS components, which we plan to implement starting school year 2023-2024. The write-up was participated by the faculty members of the 3 different colleges in UP Mindanao. We are also working on the ROTC implementation as part of the requirement of the new IRR, as part of our efforts to mobilize or organize our alumni in NSTP. We plan to propose the establishment of the NSRC so that we can tap and organize the NSTP graduates for community and public service activities of the university, especially here in Mindanao.
Magandang araw po sa ating lahat. Ako po si Carl Sayat. Isa po akong lecturer mula po sa College of Mass Communication ng UP Diliman. And isa po ako sa mga host ng programang Serbisyong Tatak UP sa DZUP 1602. Ako po ang inyong magiging tagapagpadaloy sa programang ito. Ang Sanggunian Fora Series ay isang proyektong inorganisa sa pakikipagtulungan ng Philippine Society of NSTP Educators and Instructors Incorporated o PSNEI, De La Salle University, Ateneo de Manila University, University of Santo Tomas NSTP, UP Manila NSTP, UP Los Baños NSTP, UP Cebu NSTP, UP Visayas, UP Mindanao Office of Extension and Community Service, UP Open University, DZUP 1602, UP NCPAG Center for Leadership, Citizenship, and Democracy, NSTP Diliman Office ng UP Diliman, and of course, ang host ng ating webinar ngayon ng UP Open University. Today, we will have the first installment of the Fora series. Ito ang Sanggunian Forum on Mandatory ROTC at pag-uusapan po natin ang Senate Bill number 2034 or the Reserved Officers Training Corps Act. Binabati po namin ang aming mga participants mula sa iba't ibang panig ng Pilipinas through Zoom, Facebook, and YouTube Live. So para po sa mga nasa Zoom, hello po sa inyo, and kung pwede po ay introduce niyo po ang sarili ninyo sa ating chat box. Please send us your name, your university, where you're coming from. Naku, marami na tayong nakikitang mga participants na nag-good morning sa atin. Good morning po sa inyo. Meron po tayong mga participants mula po sa University of Rizal System, mula po sa UPHS Isabela, meron pong mula po sa Davao del Norte State College, NSTP Panabo, Don Honorio Ventura State University. Napakarami po. So keep those greetings coming. Good morning po sa inyo, and we apologize for making you wait for a long time, but I'm sure that this program is worth it kasi napakarami po nating mapapag-usapan ngayong araw na ito. And of course, because we want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to be heard, we will be using Zoom polls throughout the forum, so you'll be able to participate. So please take a moment to answer our poll questions prepared for the day. Pero ito yung unang poll natin para sa araw na ito. So before this event, have you read Senate Bill number 2034 or the Mandatory ROTC Bill? Again, magpa-flash po yan sa screen ninyo, no? Have you read Senate Bill 2034 or the proposed Mandatory ROTC Bill? Yan, we're seeing many of our participants starting to answer the question. 70 so far have answered the question. And mukhang leading ngayon sa ating poll yung no, no? So not to worry. Our team from the NSTP UP Diliman office will be sending out a copy of Senate Bill 2034, no, para po ma-peruse ninyo during the entire program. And pwede po nating ma-reference, no, habang ongoing po ang ating forum. Ayan. Maraming salamat po sa pagsagot, no. Mukhang nananatiling winner ang no sa ating unang poll. So again, our team from NSTP Diliman office will be sending out a copy or a link to the document, no, ng Senate Bill 2034. Okay, maraming salamat po sa pag-participate sa ating poll. Now let's move on to the main part of our webinar, no? So let us open today's webinar with the Executive Director of the Philippine Society of NSTP Educators and Implementers Incorporated. So makakasama po natin ngayong araw na ito si Dr. Florida C. Labugen for the opening remarks.
Hello, good morning everyone. Good morning Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Welcome to the second series of the Sanggunian Consult the Implementors. Today's focus is on the Senate Bill 2034, the so-called Mandatory ROTC. So to our guest speaker, Honorable Sherwin Gatchalian, Senator of the Republic of the Philippines and Chairperson Committee on Education. Sir, good morning po. Officials representing the respective offices and schools, Organizers of this event, headed by UP NSTP through the director, Professor Dennis Kilala. The other UP units and campuses like Manila, Cebu, Los Baños, Visayas, UP Mindanao Extension and Community Service, Open University, DZUP 1602, UP NCPAG Center for Leadership, Citizenship and Democracy, De La Salle University, Ateneo University, University of Santo Tomas, of course, the Philippine Society of NSTP Educators and Implementers, our panel members, guests, participants, and everybody. Nice meeting you through this platform. So in appreciation of our presence today, let us give ourselves a warm of applause. Rest your thumbs up and good morning to everyone. Today is a blessed and wonderful day to all of us, for we are given this online opportunity to listen about the Senate Bill 2034, the so-called Mandatory ROTC. The Sanggunian Fora series is a collaborative project that aims to provide NSTP implementers and educators across the country with adequate information regarding the proposed Senate Bill number 2034, the ROTC Act. I know that we have our own respective opinion or ideas about the bill. And the common question asked is, bakit ibabalik ang ROTC? So to everyone, this is the moment to hear what our speaker has to say about the Senate Bill 2034, Mandatory ROTC, so that we can understand better about the bill and work in harmony. After all, at the end of the sharing, the challenge is, are you ready about mandatory ROTC? The answer will be yours. So for the meantime, let us sit back and relax and listen carefully. Let us just hope and pray that the Lord will give us what is best for the young people, being our future leaders of tomorrow and as good citizens in building the nation. So to all of you, welcome and God bless.
Alright, maraming salamat po Dr. Labugen for that wonderful opening remarks. No? Tama po kayo na ang goal po natin ngayon is nation building, and we want to ensure na we take a lot of insights from our guest speakers for today regarding nation building. Okay, so tumungo na po tayo sa ating agenda setting phase of this forum. We would like to welcome Assistant Professor Dennis Kilala of the Department of Political Science in UP Diliman.
Thank you, Sir Carl. Good day, everyone. The Philippine government already implemented a mandatory ROTC, as Dr. Labugen said earlier, for tertiary students before. I am a product of that program. In 2002, the National Service Training Program Act was signed into law, and this law incorporated ROTC into the NSTP, together with two other component programs, namely Civic Welfare Training Service and the Literacy Training Service. We have been implementing the NSTP for more than 20 years now, and it has not discarded the ROTC. It's still an available component program. There have been vigorous calls to replace the NSTP during the Duterte administration, but none prospered. Last year, it had renewed strength when then Vice Presidential candidate Sara Duterte supported military service for all Filipinos. It is debatable whether she supported the return of mandatory ROTC, but in the first State of the Nation address of President Marcos, Mandatory ROTC was one of the identified priority bills. Mandatory ROTC was also included in the 30 bills endorsed by the Legislative Executive Development Advisory Council, or LEDAC, in 2022. And in 2023 LEDAC, there was a change in language. Instead of mandatory ROTC, the list of the 2023 LEDAC included mandatory ROTC and NSTP. What does that mean? After a series of Senate committee hearings, Senate Bill 2034, entitled the Act Mandating the Institutionalization, Development, Training, Organization, and Administration of Reserve Officers Training Corps Program in higher education institutions and technical vocational institutions, was filed on March 21, 2023. Our resource speaker is one of the authors of the bill. Currently, the bill is on second reading, and there were already interpellations on August 7 and 9. This sanggunian on the proposed mandatory ROTC program is an online consultative forum that brings together NSTP implementers and educators so that they can be part of the discussion. Higher educational institutions are important stakeholders in this proposed program. With a new law affecting our degree programs, it would require changes in all the curriculum of the programs we offer. Based on our research, there are about 2,900 higher educational institutions. Multiply that with the degree programs that they offer, those will be the degree programs that would require changes in their curriculum. The Sanggunian is an initiative of the Philippine Society of NSTP Educators and Implementers Incorporated, the De La Salle University NSTP Information Office, UP Manila NSTP, DZUP, UP Los Baños NSTP, UP Cebu NSTP, the Office of the Vice President for Social Development, Environment, and Community Engagement of the Ateneo de Manila University, UP Visayas NSTP, Office of the Extension and Community Services of UP Mindanao, University of Santo Tomas NSTP, the Center for Leadership, Citizenship, and Democracy, and the UP Diliman NSTP office, together with our other silent partners. We have two main objectives this morning. The first is to learn, and number two is to contribute. As educators and implementers, we want to know more about a program that intends to replace the NSTP. More importantly, we want to know why the NSTP should be replaced. We are fortunate to have one of the authors of the bill to present the pertinent parts of the proposed program to us. We also want to have a space where we can freely share our concerns, ask questions, and engage in a dialogue. To our participants here in the Zoom meeting and those joining us in Facebook and YouTube, sa mga kasama natin sa Luzon, ajay kabagyak nga taga Norte, pwede ba tayo humingi dyan ng mga heart emojis? Ayan. Sa atong mga kauban sa Visayas, palihog, mag-thumbs up emoji ta. At sa atong mga kauban pod sa Mindanao, pwede ba yung clap emoji? Ayan. To our dear participants, we encourage you to engage our resource person and also our fellow participants. In our exchange with our honorable resource speaker, we do hope that as NSTP educators and implementers, we will be able to contribute to the decision-making process. Active participation as citizens is one of the skills we teach our NSTP students. So on behalf of our other organizers, and I just like to thank them for their contribution to this webinar, I wish everyone a fruitful discussion this morning. Maraming pong salamat.
Alright, maraming salamat po, Professor Kilala. Tama po kayo na ang proposed bill na ito is a huge change for most of our higher education institutions. So we'd like to open this space for discussion and discourse. And of course, we'd like to hear from one of the authors of the bill himself, to have a free-flowing discussion about the implications of this law. So at this point, sabi nga nila it's time to bring in the big guns. So to start off, allow me to introduce our resource for today. We are very pleased and very honored, of course, to have with us Honorable Sherwin Gatchalian, Senator of the Republic of the Philippines and one of the authors of the proposed Senate Bill 2034. Quality education for the future of the Filipino youth. This has been the main advocacy of our guest of honor in his more than 2 decades in public service. As a 3-term mayor and 2-term congressman of Valenzuela City, uplifting the education sector has become the pillar of his governance, as he believes that attaining quality education is a key to ending poverty. Upon his Congress stint in 2013, his vision to nationalize Valenzuela's premier education system has turned into a reality. His successful run in the Senate made him prove that achieving free tertiary education is possible when he initiated the Free Higher Education Act, which has benefited more than 6 million young Filipinos to date. Aside from ensuring that every Filipino, regardless of age, social status, or class, has a right to free basic education, he also underlines the significance of producing well-rounded and globally competent teachers in improving our country's educational system through the passage of the Excellence in Teachers Education Act. Furthermore, he guarantees that our out-of-school marginalized learners are given a second chance to return to school by championing the Alternative Learning System, or ALS. In addition to his role as the chairman of the Senate Committee on Basic Education, he also serves as the co-chairperson of the most comprehensive effort to reform the country's educational system, the Second Congressional Commission on Education, or EDCOM-2. In recognition of his leadership in the enactment of landmark laws, especially on education, he was conferred with 2 honorary degrees, Doctor of Education honoris causa by the Philippine Normal University and Doctor of Laws honoris causa by the Bulacan State University. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the pleasure to introduce to you today our constant ally from the Senate who assures that the future of the Filipino people is definitely a win, si Senator Win Gatchalian. Good morning po, Senator.
Good morning. Good morning to Sanggunian. First of all, let me greet our officers of this organization. Let me greet Brother Bernard Oka of De La Salle University. Let me also greet Assistant Professor Dennis Kilala, the Director of the National Service Training Program, University of the Philippines. Let me also greet the other universities who are here with us, and of course, the different organizations who have who are participating in this online event. Thank you very much for inviting me, and I'd like to apologize for starting out a little bit late. I came from an interview and another meeting, but thank you for hosting this event. And Dr. Kilala made a very comprehensive update on where the bill is. But just to give you an idea how this started, at least from my own personal experience, just to give context, in the 17th and 18th Congress, the original version of this bill, this was during 2016, the bill that I filed called for the reinstatement of ROTC in our senior high school level. And the reason for that, there's a logic while we decided to file a version to reinstate ROTC at the senior high school level is because everyone goes to senior high school, and the catchment for students, it's much greater at the senior high school level. But when we were looking at the data, especially after the advent of the Free Higher Education Law, the Free Higher Education Law dramatically changed higher education landscape by improving enrollments from the public to our state universities and colleges. We saw that from public schools, from high school, senior high schools, going into college, on the average, prior to the Free Higher Education Law, there are about 50% of our high school students go to college. But after the Free Higher Education Law, that 50% went as high as 80% of our high school students now go to college. And that's the beauty of this law. Beauty of the Free Higher Education Law is not only to encourage and to attract students to go to universities, but the actual enrollment or actual participation of our high schoolers going to college has also increased to about 80 to as high as 85% in some years. So, having said that, the committee, the Senate Committee on, I think this is on defense, headed by Senator Bato, and the members decided to remove it from the senior high school level and placed it back to the collegiate level, first year and second year in particular. This is the original ROTC experience prior to the NSTP law. So, and the logic there is because 80% of our high schoolers go to college anyways, it's better to put it in our collegiate level. So that's the logic why it moved from senior high school level to the collegiate level or the university level. And I just want to put the discussion on as simple as possible. And my personal reasons why I filed this bill is because why I filed this bill to reinstate ROTC is because there are three overarching objectives that I think is very important to impart in our youth. Number one is discipline. Number two is love of country. And number three is preparedness. And I would like to put emphasis on the third one because what I noticed also in recent times that when I say preparedness, when we say preparedness, it's not only preparedness to defend our country, but also to preparedness to defend our country from natural calamities. I've seen this on the ground when I was a mayor, and in a catastrophic event like, for example, in the past, Ondoy, when it struck Metro Manila I think that was 2013, more or less, 2010, 2013, I think. We were scrambling for warm bodies to help the city. I remember when I was a mayor, half of our city submerged in floodwaters, and we had to evacuate close to 4,000 people. And during those times, we were scrambling for warm bodies. And of course, there were reservists that responded. There were military personnel who responded, but it was not enough because of the magnitude of destruction that happened. So my personal experience dictated that we need to have more people ready to respond on the ground, and not only ready and willing, but trained to respond on the ground. It's different that you are willing to help. It's also different that you are equipped and capacitated to help. So having said that, that's why my overarching goal for filing this bill is, as I mentioned, discipline, love of country, and preparedness. And that was also discussed during the committee hearings, that these virtues are very important to impart in their youth, to help them in their holistic development as the future citizens of our country. So I won't go into the details of the bill, because the bill is quite hefty. But I just want to give context and rationale, at least from my personal perspective, on why I filed this bill. Of course, other senators, other proponents will have different perspective. It's good to talk to them also, to pick on their personal perspective. A lot of these bills, just to give you some idea, a lot of these bills and advocacies are derived from our own personal experiences and then our own personal perspectives. And it's good to pick on those personal perspectives so that we'll have a good appreciation on why this type of bills are being filed. Of course, ROTC is just one, but we file hundreds and hundreds of bills, and there are different reasons for those. But those are my personal reasons why I refiled this bill. So with that, would like to dedicate the rest of the time to a Q&A portion. I think there will be a Q&A portion. And I hope that in a simple manner that I have shared with you my personal perspective, and I hope that people will appreciate on the logic why I filed this proposed measure. All right. So thank you very much.
Maraming salamat po, Senator Win, for providing us with additional context on the origins of this bill. No? Nabanggit nyo nga kanina na 3 of the primary reasons why you wanted to file this bill was because of discipline, a love of country, and preparedness. And also, these are virtues that you think are quite important to impart on our youth. So maraming salamat po for that. So at this point, we would like to invite everyone to please send in your questions sa ating Q&A section dito sa Zoom. At para naman po doon sa mga nanonood on YouTube, on Facebook, please do send in your comments and our team will collect those questions and so that we will be able to ask them to Senator Win Gatchalian. But before that, we would like to ask everyone in our audience to take a minute to answer our second poll for this forum. Kindly answer the poll that will be flashed on your screen. Ito po ang tanong. Were you consulted about the mandatory ROTC bill? Yes or no? So nakonsulta po ba kayo tungkol doon sa mandatory ROTC bill? So we're waiting for the answers to come in. We have around 100 participants so far answering our poll live right now. And ayan, mukhang so far that's 83% of our audience was not consulted doon po sa bill na ito. Okay, so majority po ng ating audience, sabi po nila ay hindi daw po sila nakonsulta tungkol doon sa mandatory ROTC bill. Okay. So I'm sure that na-enable na po tayo to ask a lot more questions and to give us a lot more context on what we want to ask. So at this point, we would like to pause and breathe so we can better process yung ano pong nasabi ni Senator Win Gatchalian, and we'll have a 5-minute break para po sa mga gustong mag-CR, uminom ng tubig, kumain ng snacks, and also for those who want to look away from their screens to walk around. So we'll see you back here in 5 minutes.
We tell stories of the people. We tell stories for the people. We tell the stories of the university,
Pagpasok sa UP, parang glimpse sa
of the community, of the nation, and even beyond.
On VOA Asia, as we celebrate
Radio Day. We tell what we know, what we see, what we cover, and what we discover. We tell the stories of those who can't.
Nating mga kababayang lumad ay kolektibong katawag.
We tell the stories that should be told.
Nating epekto nitong train law para sa ating mga mahihirap na kami.
Should be heard.
Ang mensahe ko sa mga bata at sa mga magulang, alamin natin ang kasaysayan.
And should be known.
Outright na pagkikil sa media, ito ay isang malaking
We tell stories that are true.
Mga pangyayaring kaugnay ng tinatawag nating Diliman commune.
Stories that question. Stories that transform.
Instead of 55, we should say
This is what we do. Tell your stories for you, with you. This is our story.
Nabilib ako doon sa mga nananatili para pagsilbihan ng UP.
We're not just radio. We are DZUP.
Visayas at Mindanao, buong mundo kasali ka. Dito rinig boses ng masa, magkakaiba ngunit isa. Ate, kuya at mga bebs, bata matanda kasali ka. Halika na't makinig sa DZUP 1602. Tayo na't makinig sa DZUP 1602. Kasali ka. Dito harapin ang sama-sama mga isyu ng ating lipunan, ang ating magagawa para sa bayan. Kasali ka. Halika na't makinig sa DZUP 1602. Tayo na't makinig sa DZUP 1602. Kasali ka.
Pala natin, mapagpalaya't malayang bukas kaming tindig, tinigatindig na bayan, lakas ng sama-samang paghakbang, ikaw at ako, kasali tayo.
Halika na't makinig sa DZUP 1602. Tayo na't makinig sa DZUP 1602. Ikaw ako tayo sa DZUP 1602. Kasali ka.
Nagbabalik po ang Sanggunian Forum on Senate Bill 2034, Mandatory ROTC. Ako po muli ang inyong host, Carl Sayat, and we'd like to ask if nakabalik na po ba lahat ng ating mga participants sa ating Zoom. Yan. So, para po malaman natin kung nakabalik na po kayo, please send us your favorite emoji sa ating pong Zoom room. Ayan. So, marami tayong nakikita mga hearts and like reacts. May mga claps din, haha reacts. Yan. So, para po doon sa mga hindi pa nakabalik, I'm sure pwede po ninyong balikan ang ating forum later. Of course, we're very, very thankful for giving us a lot of context earlier before we went on break. Okay, so let's go on to our Q&A. Marami rin, of course, mga Q&A questions coming in sa Q&A panel ng ating Zoom room. We're seeing that some of Senator Wynn's staff are answering those questions, and we'd like to ask some of those questions live later on. Okay, moving on to our first question. It will be coming from Dr. Clement Camposano, Chancellor ng UP Visayas. So he's not here with us today, but he did send in his video question.
Senator Gatchalian, thank you for this opportunity to ask you a question. As a former advanced ROTC cadet myself and a long-time advocate of civic education, I am of the honest belief that ROTC will have the most beneficial impact for those who are genuinely interested in military training. Such has been my case. Our bigger goal of citizenship education, however, is best served by giving students the option to choose whether they want military training or something else. May I have your thoughts on this, Senator?
Okay, maraming salamat po, Dr. Camposano. So to add context, Senator Wynn, ang objective ng panukalang batas na ito ay ma-inculcate daw ang patriotism, nationalism, and respect for human rights. No, we're seeing that on our screens right now. Bukod pa dyan, ayon din sa datos mula sa Youth-led ng the Asia Foundation, 81% na ng kabataan daw ay proud na maging Pilipino. So ang assumption po ba nito, Senator, under the current status quo ay hindi po ba nagagawang ma-ignite ng current program ng CWATS at LTS ang patriotism?
Okay. Thank you, Carl. Thank you for that very important question. And it's good to ask that question. No? It's a honestly, it's a very difficult question, but it's good to ask it. Never in our discussions to reinstate ROTC did we accuse NSTP and the other components, LTS, CWS, that it is less patriotic, less nationalistic, and less disciplined. We never mentioned that in the bill or in any discussion. Obviously, the LTS and the CWS have very different objectives. But we never, personally, my personal take, I've never viewed it as a lesser track to take for the youth. But my analysis and my own personal experience is that ROTC has a lot of virtues that can create not only actual skills, but good virtues that is important for national development, and that's important also for national growth. And I'll put it very simply, para lang there's tangibles, no? Because I don't want to talk about motherhood concepts. No? So for example, discipline. No? I'll narrow it down to my 3 core objectives. No? And again, different senators will have different personal perspective, but I'll narrow it down to my 3 core objectives, and I'll put tangibles, hindi lang motherhood statements. No? When I say discipline, no? Military training, in my observation, inculcates discipline because you learn how to respect the hierarchy, you learn how to respect strategy, you learn how to work as a team cohesively, and you learn how to achieve a specific goal cohesively. So those virtues are present in military training and also military approaches. That's why ROTC, you work as a team. You work cohesively as one unit. And there's a very clear goal on what to achieve. And that spurs discipline among those who will take ROTC and among people who are in the military. So that's part of that discipline approach. When it comes to love of country, I picked this up when I became a full-fledged member of the reservists. And it's really different. No? It's really a different form of patriotism to wear the uniform, to be trained to defend the country, whether from external or internal aggression, or defend the country from natural calamities. It's different when you wear that uniform. It's different when you are spending a lot of time being trained to defend our country. It's a different form of patriotism. And in my opinion, it's a deeper form of patriotism because you're willing to risk your life or you're willing to wage your life for your country. The third one is preparedness. And this is really hard skills that we learn. It's not only just purely an abstract, but hard skills that we learn. For example, basic first aid. I'm a registered basic first aider and I know how to respond. I'm also a member of Red Cross. But those skills are hard skills that we learn in order to respond and help our fellow men. Again, it's different when you're willing to help. It's different also when you're trained to help, because it's not only enough that you have the spirit to help, but you need to also know how to respond. And that's what we, again, I always refer to my personal, because the bill is a personal creation of my team. So in terms of preparedness, what we envision is to train our youth not only to respond, but they have the skills to respond so that they can help they can help our kababayans, they can help our fellow men in times of need, whether calamity or whether external and or internal aggression. So those are the three things that I want to put as tangibles. Not only just abstract na love of country, pagmamahal sa bayan, but we need to have tangibles. And those are my tangibles that I want to express and make our youth understand where I'm coming from.
Maraming salamat po sa pagsagot doon sa katanungan na yun, Senator. Ito pong pangalawang question natin na na-prepare ngayon will be coming from the NSTP Director of Mindanao State University. So panuorin po natin ito.
Magandang umaga po sa lahat. Abdul Rashid Lokman po, NSTP Director ng Mindanao State University Main Campus, Marawi City. Meron lang po ako dalawang katanungan patungkol po sa ROTC Bill. Una, kapag ito po ay naipatupad na sa lahat ng first-year college students, as only activated ROTC unit ng Lanao del Sur, kami po ay nababahala that the MSU cannot provide venue for field instruction kasi meron po kaming nag-average ng mahigit 3,000 freshman students taon-taon. Ang pangalawa naman po, ano po ang kaibahan ng mandatory military training na mayroon sa South Korea at ang isinusulong na mandatory ROTC training sa Pilipinas? Salamat po.
Okay, so yung katanungan po na yun, Senator, no, i-summarize natin. So dalawa po yung concerns. Una, yung kakulangan ng venue for field instruction, and yung second, yung pag-address doon sa comparison with other countries. No? Base daw po kasi sa datos na nakalap ng NSTP Diliman Office Research, these countries have been compared to the case of the Philippines. No? Pero many of these countries do not even have ROTC or mandatory ROTC. So saan daw po nanggaling yung comparison na ito?
Okay. Magandang tanong yan. In fact, in those countries listed above, I was privileged enough to have interaction with Singapore, their Singapore Ministry of Defense. And there's another country that I had the privilege of interacting with, no, in terms of mandatory conscription. That is Finland. And maybe later on, I'll share a quote that I got from Lee Kuan Yew, the famous Prime Minister of Singapore, and his logic on why they made it mandatory in Singapore. Doon sa mga bansa, those countries that you flashed earlier, those are mandatory conscription, meaning they have to take, depends on the country, no? But on the most popular is 2 years full-time mandatory conscription. So when you turn the age of 18, you go into military service for 2 years full-time. And I think the famous story there is always the South Korean story where a lot of the K-pop stars disappear for 2 years because they have to enter mandatory military service. In Korea, it's mandatory. And if you don't enter mandatory military service, it's either you pay a hefty fine or you're put in jail. In Finland, it's the same. There are only two options that you can. There's only actually if you avoid mandatory conscription in Finland, there are only two tracks that you will go to. Either you pay a hefty fine or you go to jail. I think you're put in jail for 1 or 2 years. No, I think more or less. The same with Israel and the same with other countries that were flashed in the slide. The reason, ang difference kasi is they're mandatory. Meaning when you turn the age of 18, you're mandatory to go into 2 years military training. And that is full-blown military training. You learn how to fire a gun. You learn how to, I think, in some cases, drive a tank. You learn how to use a missile launcher depending on the country and depending on their budget. In our case, it's not full-time. What's envisioned here is once a week, 2 hours, probably, depending on the, of course, depending on the design of the ROTC instruction. No? Wala pa kasi yan. That will be implemented after the law has been approved. then you will have all of those details, no? The curriculum, the components of the instruction, and all of those things will be done after the law has been implemented. So, but what is envisioned, what is being envisioned by the senators and some of the proponents is the same as last time, no? Once a year, and probably 2 hours, maximum 3 hours, and only the basics. That is what is being envisioned. We acknowledge that the 2 years full-time is going to take away working time from our students. I know that a lot of our students want to enter the labor force and earn and get a job and earn for their families right away. So I'm also not in favor of a 2-year full-time, because that will push graduation time by 2 years, and we cannot afford that as a developing nation. So what we envision, at least my personal vision is to just go back to the original setup, which is once a week, 2 to 3 hours a day. And I'll go I'll share with you my discussion with Finland, no? Maganda yung discussion namin with them. I was asking them, how come you never remove mandatory conscription? And the simple answer there is, we share a border with Russia. Anytime Russia can invade us. Anytime Russia can create all sorts of different reasons to invade us. In fact, they just recently joined NATO, if you recall, no? Sweden and Finland. And that's the reason why in Finland it's mandatory. The same with South Korea. Their borders with North Korea. Anytime North Korea can invade South Korea, and they want to be ready. They want to have a core of reserves that are trained already. If you notice in Ukraine, if you've been following the issue in Ukraine, because conscription there is not mandatory, they're only training their soldiers now, no? So those who enter into, because they're at war right now. So those who are mandated to join the military are just being trained now. For Finland and for South Korea, it's different. They say we have to train now. So in any event, no, we're ready, and we have a core of competent reservists who can immediately join the force full time. In Singapore, it's the same, no? And Singapore, what they're thinking is, Singapore is very small, no? It's the population of Singapore is only 6 million. So they're thinking we're so small that anyone who invades us will instantly take over Singapore right away. But sinasabi nila, if we have a core of trained Singaporeans, we can put up a fight. No, it's either we can delay that takeover or we can actually win. No, so that's the thinking of Singapore. Because of their size, they have to be ready. So if you analyze all of their answers, it's about readiness. And when you say ready, you don't become ready when the invaders are ready here in the Philippines, or the calamity has already struck in our country. We're ready at any given time. So readiness is about foreseeing what might happen in our country. And regardless that will happen or not, we're capable and we're equipped with skills that can respond. So that's the difference. And the long and short of my answer is, the difference between those countries that were flashed on the screen is because there's imminent threat in their own countries, and they want to be ready by making sure that they have a core of reservists, or a core, or their population as a whole is already trained and ready to respond at any given time. In our case, we might not be as ready as them, but we will have the basic skills to respond. So that's the difference between those countries and our system.
Thank you po, Senator. So the proposal is different from conscription, but this is mandatory ROTC. Siguro, as a follow-up, we understand that we need to be ready to defend ourselves, and we know that there might be some imminent threats around our country. And the question is, why do we need to involve universities and higher education institutions who train students in a different manner and not just let the military handle conscription and training citizens for preparedness for national defense? Why are universities and HEIs, why do HEIs have to be involved?
Yeah. Well, for three reasons. The three reasons why HEIs are involved is, number one, they're already in our system, meaning they're already studying. So I mentioned earlier, the catchment area is already there, no? As opposed to, let's say, they're out of the system, you have to call them one by one. No? Number two, they're able bodies. We all know that our youth are able bodies. They can respond to any situation, as opposed to, let's say, people like us who are much older than our youth. And number three, military training is also a good way of teaching our youth organization. No? Again, I mentioned earlier, military is designed to be organized, be cohesive, having a single goal. And with that type of training, it's easy to organize on the ground. You know, it's easy to get people who are well trained already to respond to a specific event. So that's the reason why we decided to do it at the higher education institution level, because it's already a catchment area. But I admit, no, this proposal is still not perfect, no? Because if you look at the data, we still have approximately, more or less, in that age group, about 2 to 3 million who are not in school. We have to also remember we have a lot of out-of-school youth. No? So what we're trying to address, actually, what we will be addressing in the future is, we should, when you say train the youth, it's not only the youth going inside our schools, but also the out-of-school youth, meaning the youth that are not in schools. That's about 2 to 3 million in terms of number, depending on the age cohort. So, and that I actually talked to Senator Bato about that, because we don't want a scenario wherein we have a core of highly trained youth who are in schools, and we have a core of not trained youth outside of the schools. We have to address that cohort as well. So we will address that later on. I know that's a little bit more complicated, but we will have a solution for that.
Okay, thank you, Senator. I think Professor Kilala wants to ask a follow-up.
Senator, thank you very much for the response. Now, I mean, this is something that I learned from Mindanao as well, when basic education schools are how would I put it? They consider themselves as zones of peace. I was just wondering if, for example, universities are seen as training grounds for reservists, won't they be seen as legitimate targets of insurgents, of external aggressors, and therefore would that put us in a pickle? Thank you, Senator.
That's a very good question, Dr. Kilala. Thank you for that question. Again, these are all my personal perspective and my personal logic. We're training our students to respond and to defend. We never contemplated that our youth will be used to invade or to do aggressive activities. And if you look at the law, it's really a very balanced law, meaning we also put a lot of emphasis on disaster preparedness. So it's not purely for reasons of military purpose. It's really to create a holistic core of well-trained youth that is knowledgeable how to respond, and that is knowledgeable also on organization. Organization is very important. Again, I'll grab from my experience as a mayor. It's very difficult to organize people. Organizing 10 10 people might be easy, but organizing 200, 300 people is very difficult. You need to have that sense of, or do you need to have that knowledge on how to organize yourself or how to organize other people? And that's also one of the strengths of the military. If you look at how this, how the philosophy is really organizing themselves and making sure that that organization has a certain purpose. No? So, yeah, the long and short answer of that for that question, Dr. Kilal, is we never contemplated any form of aggression that will be inculcated in our trainees.
Right. Maraming salamat po, Senator, for answering that question. I hope, Professor Kilala, na-satisfy naman po yung inyong question. So we can move on to the next one. Our third prepared question will come from Ms. Rhea Ilagan from the University of Santo Tomas. So she's actually here. So Ms. Rhea, if you could go ahead and unmute. Okay. Nahanap po natin si Ms. Rhea Ilagan if she is here.
Hi.
Yan. Sige pa, go ahead.
Good morning. Good morning, Senator Gatchalian. So, on my insight, yung sinabi niyo na po yung mga virtues, what's this, yung mga mga developments, actually ginagawa na namin sa NSTP po yan. Yung mga preparedness, strategies. Ang difference lang, wala kaming guns. If you're referring for organization, we're already implementing yung community organizing, participatory approach. As you have said, holistic po. Yun din po yung ano namin. If in case of preparedness, meron na din po kami. Kasi nag-DRRM na po kami implementation way back pa po. So ngayon po, ang question po, may question po ko, sir. Are there any measures or provisions that are being considered to address the potential job implications for the current NSTP implementers? As you can see, Senator, ako 20 years, kung 20 years nagsimula ako sa NSTP. In the light of the changes that might arise from the proposed mandatory ROTC bill. So, also, I'm glad that yung ano nyo po is personal experience. Pero it's sad to know kasi sana nag-consult din sa mga NSTP implementers. So, that's it, Senator. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. I understand that I might be wrong, but from my understanding is during the hearings, NSTP groups, student groups were invited. But then again, I have to look at the actual records. No, but having said that, definitely. We will not allow any job losses or any displacements when this law will be implemented. We will definitely make sure that there'll be available jobs, or available trainers that will be training the other facets of education. Probably we can include that as an amendment in the law. I think that's a very good suggestion that you put forth. That for those who are already doing NSTP training or other forms of training within that NSTP law, there should be some form of transition or some form of accommodation. That's a good suggestion that we can put in the law. But definitely, we're not envisioning of any unemployment or job losses. What we can do is we can put some form of transition, so that those who are in the NSTP training area can transition and can be accommodated by schools.
Okay, maraming salamat po, Senator, for answering. I hope, Ms. Rhea, nasagot po ni Senator yung inyong tanong. May konting follow-up lang po, Senator, no, sa paano kalang batas po kasi na ito i-employ daw ang mga dating NSTP personnel. So kasama po ba ang mga teaching personnel dito? Kasi ang concern po ay iba daw po ang discipline at ang skill na kailangan para magturo ng ROTC, no? At sa kasalukuyan ang maapektuhan nito ay around 2,424 higher education institutions that are implementing NSTP. So ano po yung mangyayari sa kanila under the proposed law?
Yeah, we will I am looking at section 13 right now, and their priority employment as personnel to assist in management of basic education. But I want to, yung kaninang suggestion, napakaganda yun, no? To have also a sort of like a transition or sort of like a retraining program or upskilling and reskilling. I think that can be included in the bill, no? I think that's a good suggestion. So yeah, we can include some reskilling and upskilling for all types of personnel who wants to get involved in ROTC, because I think ROTC should not be limited to those who are already in NSTP. Should be open to those who want to join the ROTC program. So whether you are going to be directly training or you'll be assisting, that should be available to all. I think the more people we can invite to join this advocacy, the better. And government should make available training programs so that they can join productively. Again, no, we're not looking at a full-time military training just like in Singapore or South Korea. This is actually not even part-time, no, but a very limited time just to teach the most basics to our youth.
Maraming salamat po, Senator. We have one more prepared question. I think nandito siya to ask it personally. For our fourth question, we want to go to Assistant Professor Gary Tabugon of Caraga State University in Mindanao. Professor Tabugon, if you're here, please unmute and ask your question.
Hello, good afternoon, Senator. So I am Gary Tabugon from Caraga State University main campus. So this is my question. Have we considered the increase in tuition for private higher education institution students due to the proposed 2-year mandatory ROTC?
Okay, maraming salamat po, Professor Tabugon. Senator, dagdagan lang namin ng context yung tanong, no? We have some data from our research. I-reiterate lang natin nung sinabi ni Professor Tabugon na around 100% ang magiging increase ng tuition para sa military service corps for private HEIs. At more than 1.6 million students ang magiging affected ng increase na ito. So, your response po, Senator?
I have to review that impact on tuition. No? Honestly, I haven't really reviewed the impact of tuition, but conceptually, it should not be a burden for our students. That's why in the bill, we propose to give vouchers for uniforms and other paraphernalias. And the reason for that is we want to make it as less costly as possible for our students. I've reviewed the cost, no, that will be passed on to our schools, but government will be the one allocating funds for the trainers, for salary payments, for representation, and even uniforms. No, and that will amount to close to about 9 billion. In terms of fund allocation. So, in other words, this is a policy that government is willing to spend, and government finds it necessary for the situation right now and for the situation in the future. So, as to what will be passed on, I have to compute it. No? But that's not the intention. We want to make it as less costly as possible for our youth.
Okay, maraming salamat po, Senator. So now we will be reading some questions from Zoom, Facebook, and YouTube Live. So nag-feed na po ng mga tanong sa akin yung mga staff po ng NSTP Diliman at na-curate na po nila some of the questions para po wala masyadong nauulit, Senator. So ito po yung first question natin mula po sa Facebook Live. Question from Jude. How will the Mandatory ROTC Act address the case of Mark Chua, considering that he died because of the corruption activities in the previous ROTC system?
That's a very good question. And that's actually one of the most important discussions when we were hearing this bill at the committee level to prevent abuses, violence, and corruption. And that's why we created a grievance board we created a grievance board at the national level all the way down to the school level. So this is an innovation that we introduced in the bill. And the grievance board is institutionalized. So it's not up to the schools to create that grievance board. And the grievance board also is tasked to come up with proactive programs. So it's not only going to wait for complaints and for issues to come up, but they should come up with proactive programs to prevent violence, corruption, and abuse. And let me just greet General Garcia, who is, I saw his comments earlier. General Garcia has been very active in the discussion of ROTC, and he was also very generous in sharing with us some information and best practices abroad. So just to go back, there's a mechanism to prevent this type of abuses, and there's also and government is willing to fund those mechanisms so that those abuses will not happen anymore.
Okay, thank you so much, Senator. Next question po, I think, will come from Ma'am Joyce Marzan. She would like to ask it personally. Ma'am, would you like to unmute?
Yes. Is it possible to turn on the camera or voice na lang?
Sure, go ahead po, ma'am, if you're able.
It says the host has prevented.
Okay, mukhang audio na lang po muna.
Okay.
Apologies po, ma'am.
Senator Gatchalian and all our participants. Sir, in a way, I'm asking this question on behalf of many of those that have sent in written questions. Since this is a forum of NSTP educators, we really appreciate the value of NSTP itself. Nakikita namin yung kabutihang nagaganap ng CWTS and ng LTS that within the current program, students already have mandatory hours in citizenship training, drug education, disaster response management, environmental protection, and other concerns. And for example, in UP Manila, we have units also on disability sensitivity, drug SOGI sensitivity, anti-sexual harassment, and we will be developing another module for public health, the involvement of all Filipinos and especially health science professionals, since that's our campus, in ensuring universal health care. And we have seen, sir, through the outreach projects that we engage in CWTS and LTS, we have seen the development of nationalism, a sense of commitment to nation building in our students, beyond being prepared for to defend the country, beyond being prepared for disasters. So how will you address the loss of this if it's replaced completely by ROTC?
Well, two things, Ms. Joyce. That's why in the beginning of the session, I said that we never looked at the CWTS or LTS as a lesser patriotic course or track that students can take. That was never discussed in our hearings. That was never discussed in our bills. this is a bill on ROTC and the benefits that ROTC can bring to our youth and also to our nation. And unfortunately, and I've asked this many times, I remember I was once tasked to hear this bill, I think in 2019 or 2020, so somewhere thereabouts. I was tasked to hear this bill, and we requested CHED to come up with a concrete study on the output and the the output and their analysis on NSTP. In fact, that was also asked during this Congress, when we were hearing this bill. Unfortunately, CHED has never produced any of those studies that we can use. Of course, we see, personally, I see a lot of this benefits and also a lot of the achievements that these two tracks have created. I'll give you a very specific example. Like in Valenzuela, we have a local university, the Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Valenzuela. And we actually tap the CWTS students to help us with our literacy programs. Those CWTS are also students of the education course in our school. So, in other words, we see also some benefit from those two courses. I just hope that there is a larger study to concretize. We need to have concrete or hard concrete achievements that can be demonstrated to a formal study. But having said that, we can. That's something that we can think about. For me, it's something that we can think about on those type of courses and what those type of courses can also achieve in tandem with ROTC. I don't have the setup yet, but it's something that we can think about and something that we can definitely talk about within the committee.
I hope you're really able to do that, sir. I failed to introduce myself. I am Associate Professor Jocelyn Marzan from the University of the Philippines, Manila. I'm one of the NSTP coordinators, former dean of our college as well. And it was really I'm glad to hear that you would like to think about the possibilities for continuing with CWTS and LTS, because the bill, as you propose it now, repeals the NSTP Act. So it removes NSTP and replaces it with ROTC. So even if you're not speaking badly about or looking down on CWTS and LTS, the bill that is being proposed effectively removes them. So I'm glad to hear that you're open to looking at possibilities of continuing with CWTS and LTS.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from, Miss Joyce. I hope I can see you on the screen, but it's good to see your face. Para it's a personal interaction, but I hope the administrator can turn on your video. There, yeah. It's good to see you in person, so we'll have a much more personal interaction. I understand where you're coming from, and it's good that you raised that. And I would really appreciate if UP Manila has some form of study, or some form of research or some form of report on what are the gains from CWTS, what are the gains from LTS, what are the gains from ROTC, because right now all of those are optional on the part of students. Based on your experience for the last maybe 20 years or X amount of time, if you can share that with us, because we've been asking CHED to give us those studies. So we will appreciate, the senators will appreciate. If you have those, I'll be more than happy to read those. And if you have a proposal, to be honest about it, if there's something that we can set up, for example this is just an example, ROTC plus CWTS or ROTC plus something to that effect. We're very open to discussing it. And you guys are the experts, you guys are the implementers, you will know how to put that together. We're very open to suggestions. And I can suggest to our chairman, of course, our chairman, Senator Bato, that we can have a win-win situation wherein we maintain the values and the benefits of CWTS and LTS, but we also maintain and create a ROTC program that will work in tandem with these other programs. We're very open to suggestions. The bill, to be honest, the bill po is still under the period of debate, so we can still introduce some refinements and improvements in the bill.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ma'am Joyce.
Professor Kilala about the research that you were asking for. He has some insight on that. Professor Kilala, would you like to unmute?
Yeah, Senator, our Sanggunian partner, the Center for Leadership, Citizenship, and Democracy of NCPAG is currently doing an NSTP study, so you might be interested with their studies.
Yeah, definitely. We're more than happy to receive those studies.
Thank you, Professor Kilala. Next question, Senator, is medyo related siya doon sa tinanong po ni Ma'am Joyce, no? Mula po kay Antonio, in consideration of the academic freedom of schools, particularly private institutions, shouldn't school officials and their students be given the choice of how best to instill discipline, love of country, and preparedness of their students for disasters? Mandating one form of training is a one-size-fits-all approach which may not be effective for all students and schools. Mula po ito sa Zoom Q&A natin.
Is that a question or a comment?
I believe it's a comment, Senator. Mandating one form of training is a one-size-fits-all approach which may not be effective. Would you like to respond, Senator?
Well, I mentioned earlier, that my personal view is military training has its strengths, and one of which is organization, cohesiveness, goal orientation, and all of those. That's very unique. That's very unique to military training. So, but we're injecting it other facets. So it's not purely just military. We're injecting also disaster preparedness, first aid, and the other preparedness skills. So it's not going to be purely militaristic, but we're also injecting other skills so that the training will be well-rounded.
Senator, I think in relation to academic freedom, yung kanyang tanong, with regard to schools having the academic freedom to teach the best or their choice on how to instill discipline, love of country, and preparedness.
Well, we're not touching on academic freedom. No, this is a national policy. No? It's just like the PSGs of CHED, no, the program standards and guidelines. There's a national policy on certain areas, for example, on curriculum, on curriculum standards, in the same manner on training. And this is a national policy that will form part of nation building and, of course, national development. So in terms of, let's say, what to teach, who to teach, it's still with the HEIs. That's the responsibilities of our HEIs.
Okay, maraming salamat po, Senator, for responding. Ang next question po natin ay mula kay Dr. Agapito, mula po sa UP Manila. Sir, would you like to unmute and open your cam?
Hello po, good morning. Ayaw din po yung video. It's fine kung walang video. Good morning everyone, and this to Senator Gatchalian. Ang akin pong question is related to academic course offerings at the tertiary level. I remember na nagkaroon po tayo ng tinatawag na new GE program and also this K-12 scenario, and we are also now expecting changes in the EDCOM, no, because of the EDCOM. Ang question ko po, was this considered when you draft your proposed bill? What are the curricular changes required by this law? Tingin ko po kasi talaga makaka-apekto yung 2 years duration kasi sa amin, I'm a biology professor, mag-add lang kami ng isang course or it really has an impact on the way we're the scheduling of our classes and everything. I mean, with regards to units and all. And since this mandatory ROTC is 2 years, I think it will really have an impact on the way we offer our courses. So were you able to consider that in your in the proposed bill?
The way I understand it, and we had an extensive discussion with Ched on the GE subjects, and the way I understand it, ma'am, is the GE subjects have been brought down to the senior high school level, and a lot of our not a lot, no, but our HEIs have now room to add, or not room, but has already decongested their curriculum in terms of units. So the way I understand it, I'm not a technical person on curriculum, but the way I understand it, the units have gone down dramatically because of the general subjects that were brought down to senior high school. And because of that, our students our students at the tertiary level can actually finish their course much earlier if they take a lot of units. So that's my understanding. But to answer your question directly, to be honest about it, we did not talk about how ROTC will form part of the overall schedule of our tertiary students. I'll be honest, we never talked about that. During the discussion with Ched, they never also raised that, so we thought it's not a dramatic issue. It's something that we can look at this point. But thank you for raising that. I'll be honest, we never discussed that during the hearing.
Salamat din po, and it's a comfort that you mentioned that you are open to suggestions, and that's why we are having this consultation session para po talaga maipatupad natin ng maayos po ang mga nais natin para po sa ikauunlad ng ating bayan. May ganun po akong vision sa ating buhay. Di ba? Yun po naman ang gusto natin. Gusto lang po talaga nating maging maayos po ang ating buhay dito sa ating mundo. Salamat po sa inyo, Senator Win.
Thank you po. Yes, we're open to suggestion. This bill is not yet finished, or it's a work in progress. In fact, there'll be a lot of amendments later on. So feel free to send us your proposals. If you have any proposals, how to refine, how to improve this bill, how to change some concepts, we're very open to that.
Salamat po.
Thank you po.
Thank you, Dr. Agapito. Thank you, Senator. Another question from FB Live, kaugnay pa rin po sa tanong ni Dr. Agapito mula po kay Leonardo Tobias II, ROTC Coordinator of Bulacan State University. What are the qualifications of the members of ROTC training staff? Unfortunately, most of the members of ROTC are college undergrad or sometimes reservists who are very close or friends of regular personnel assigned in community defense centers. How will the said bill professionalize the qualifications of the training staff? Thank you.
Yeah, that will be placed in the implementing rules and regulations. We didn't put that in the bill because it's it's very detailed, and that's part of the implementation already. But what we are envisioning is, of course, to have very competent and professional trainers. And someone made a suggestion earlier of upskilling and reskilling. So that's a good improvement that we can include in the bill, so that those who have experience already and those who have some knowledge on ROTC training or NSTP training can be upskilled and reskilled. So there's no detail on what type of trainers that will be employed in the bill, because that will come later when the IRR is being drafted already.
Okay, maraming salamat po, Senator. And we have a lot more questions coming in. I think our staff from the NSTP Diliman office will collate them and then send them to your office po, sir.
Yes.
So, may time po kayo to peruse them. So I think we'll go to our last question mula po kay Anonymous. What is next? Teachers, admin, students do not know what is going to happen. Should we be worried?
what do you
The question, sir, is what is next now after this? Teachers, admin, and students do not know what is going to happen. Is there any reason for us to be worried about the proposed bill?
What's going to happen in terms of the bill or in terms of the implementation?
Yes, sir. I think we can talk about in terms of the bill. What is next? What's going to happen next?
Okay. Well, now we're in the period of debates, and after that will be the period of amendments, and it's good. It's good that we have you invited me to this session, and we had this session. It's good that we had this conversation because this is a work in progress, and we can still make refinements and changes in the bill, and we're very open. Senator Bato as well is very open to hear, to listen and to hear your thoughts on the bill. And feel free to email it to us. I'll flash my email later on, so that we can hear your suggestions. If you have very specific concepts that you want to include in the bill, we're very open in looking at that. No? Like I said earlier to Ms. Joyce, you guys are the implementers of this bill, and it's very important that we take note and we put a lot of emphasis on your voices, because at the end of the day, you guys are the ones who will be implementing this bill, and we want to make sure that it's smooth, the safeguards are set up, and the outcomes are productive and beneficial to us as a nation. No, it's not only looking at a core of trainees or a core of students being trained, but we have to look at the entire nation and how the entire nation will benefit to this training that is being given to our college students.
Thank you, Senator. And siguro, doon po sa tanong na should we be worried, is there a reason for our NSTP implementers to be worried about replacing the NSTP with the ROTC bill?
I understand where the worry is coming from. No, I understand that. I think I get that sense earlier, and we in the bill. No, I think it's section. Let me look at that. Section 13. The NSTP trainers will be given priority, but I would like to make an introduction that government should also make sure that they are trained, not only prioritized but trained also. So we can still make a lot of improvements, so that worry, that the sense of insecurity can be mitigated or can disappear. So, and I understand where our trainers are coming from, and then let me assure you that I am going to be very mindful of that, and I will make sure that our trainers are protected, and there's a path, a career path for them to join in this new proposal that is being discussed.
Okay, maraming salamat po, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, for being very open to answer so many concerns and so many questions. No, I hope na medyo natanong natin or nasagot natin yung many of the concerns of our attendees for today. But before we let you go, we'd like to invite everyone to participate on our last poll. We have one last poll question, and we'd like to hear your thoughts. So at this point, are you in favor of the mandatory ROTC bill? So the question is being flashed on your screens right now. From what you've heard so far, are you in favor of the mandatory ROTC bill? So let us wait for most of our participants to send their answer in. We have around 100 participants already keying in their answers. So yes or no pa rin po ang options natin dito. From what you've heard throughout this forum, nagbago ba yung isip ninyo? Are you in favor of the mandatory ROTC bill? Okay, so we can keep this on our screen for now while more people come in and answer our poll. Right now, it's around 31% yes and around 69% no doon sa ating poll. Okay, so maraming
Can I also show a poll?
Sir, go ahead po.
Kasi I made this presentation, and I'll share this with the body so that can I share? Is it possible to share, to present?
Yes, sir. You are able to share your screen.
Let me see if I can. I'll try to share lang my PowerPoint. Hindi ko nakikita yung PowerPoint. Hold on, ha? Let me just...
Sure po, Senator, no problem.
Sorry, I'm trying to look for the PowerPoint. Ito. Okay. I'll share this with everyone. Okay. And this is a presentation I made during the hearing. And there's also a poll that we ran in March of 2023. And 78% of our population strongly agrees with the reinstatement of ROTC in college. Of course, there were people who disagreed, but overwhelming majority agreed. And the reason, and I got this also from some news areas, no? And they were saying, yeah, pero hindi naman sinurvey mga college students. But if you break down this poll using age, you can see that even 18 to 24 years old agrees to reinstate the ROTC.
Senator, I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't think we're able to see the majority of your screen. We're only able to see the header of the presentation.
Can you see it now?
No, sir. Only the title bar.
Ito lang?
Yes, sir.
Sandali. Let me stop lang. Sorry, Bakit wala? Bakit ganun? Can you see it now?
Ay, task ba yung header lang, Senator? Ang
header
nakikita
lang,
namin.
no? Yeah.
Senator, go ahead. You can just tell us the data. I guess we can forward it to our participants.
I'll share it na lang. I'll try one more time, Carl. Kung kaya pa. I don't know what happened Sandali Let me, sorry to everyone. So it's, sorry to everyone. Ito na lang. Ito. Try natin to. Pero hindi PowerPoint to. It's just PDF. Ito pala. Can you see it now? Yan. Kita niyo na, no? Okay. Yeah. So I was saying that 78% of our population agrees to bring back ROTC. About so overwhelming majority agrees to bring back ROTC. But obviously there are also who disagrees, about 13%. And if you look at the age of those who want to bring ROTC, it's the same across the board, including those who are in college. So if you look at the age between 18 to 24, 75% of those cohort agrees to bring back ROTC. So it's an overwhelming majority, even for college-age kids. And the reason for that, if you ask those who agrees, is 71% says that they want discipline and responsibility. And then 60% says preparedness to defend the country. 59% said leadership and develop leadership skills. So all of these good qualities our population is yearning to inculcate in our youth. But of course, there are also those who don't agree. And the reason for those who don't agree is hazing, abuse, harassment, and then that's 75%, and then waste of time, about 56%. No, so we take that 75% very seriously. That's why in the bill there's a lot of discussion on the grievance board, how to avoid corruption, and how to be proactive, not only just waiting for things to happen, but being proactive to prevent abuse and corruption. This one I explained earlier that because of the free higher education law, 81% of our high schools are now entering college, which is good. And that's why we decided to move the mandatory ROTC from senior high school to college. And lastly, and this is what I was saying earlier, that one of the reasons why Singapore made it compulsory, their military training, is because Singapore is a small place. No? It's a small country with 6 million population. And when they were debating whether to create a mandatory conscription, this is a comment that I saw in the internet by Lee Kuan Yew, their famous prime minister, and he said the best deterrent to any Malaysian plan to regain control over Singapore, Malaysia, because in the past they were fighting, was their knowledge that even if they could subdue our armed forces, they would have to keep down a whole people well trained in the use of arms and explosives. Of course, in Singapore is full-time training, no? So that's why there's arms and explosives. But the key word here is well trained. So that's their view. That's why they made conscription mandatory for 2 years. So you can email us. These are our social media sites. But feel free to email us your comments, your suggestions, anything that you want us to look at. And we look at our email regularly, and we take feedbacks and comments very seriously as well. So again, thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you very much, Carl.
Thank you very much, Senator, for being very open to answer these questions today and for attending this forum with us. I'm sure every one of us are more knowledgeable and a bit more wiser doon sa proposed bill na ito. Kung kanina ay maraming nagsasabi na hindi pa nila nababasa ang bill, siguro ngayon ay medyo confident na tayo, leaning towards the yes. All right, so with that, we would like to present our certificate of appreciation to our speaker, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, for today's session, Sanggunian Forum on Senate Bill number 2034, Reserved Officers Training Corps Act. Thank you so much, Senator. Just a quick photo with the speaker, with the host, with some of our panelists, if you would like to turn on your cameras and join us for the photo. Yeah, so may mga nag-turn on na ng kanilang camera. Okay. Sa page 1 po muna tayo. Smile po. Okay, and then sa page 2, kung sino naman po ang inatasang mag-screenshot. Alright. Okay, maraming salamat po. Maraming salamat po, Senator. Before we let you go, and before we let everyone go, it is with great pleasure and honor that we introduce the individual who will be delivering the closing remarks for this forum. Please welcome Brother Bernard S. Oca, FSC, President of the De La Salle University, Incorporated.
Warm greetings to all our dedicated NSTP educators and implementers from different higher education institutions and state universities and colleges. 2 decades ago, DLSU committed to implement the NSTP, as this provides an opportunity to hone our students to become active agents for social transformation. Since then, we continue to innovate strategies on how to better implement the program despite the many challenges we encountered. Over the years, DLSU has implemented NSTP in different learning modalities, starting from full face-to-face for several years. When the pandemic started, we were challenged to try new things and shifted to full online mode for 3 consecutive years. Gradually, we started to implement a hybrid setup this academic year. For DLSU, NSTP is beyond a law-mandated course requirement. And NCP's goal is very much aligned with our university's vision and mission, that is to be a service of the church and society, especially the poor and marginalized. As we also emphasize, Lasallian mission is an expression of God's loving concern, particularly oriented towards the well-being of the young and the poor, and lived out in association by an educational community. True to this, we have forged institutional partnerships with like-minded groups and organizations to better implement NSTP. They actively engaged in forming our Lasallian students to become good and responsible citizens. The Sanggunian Forum on NCSTP is a collaborative project that aims to provide NSTP implementers and educators across the country with adequate information regarding the proposed bill. We have invited resource persons from both the upper and lower chamber to discuss the salient features of the proposed legislative measures for two separate occasions. We hope that today will be an opportunity for us to clarify and raise questions in relation to the proposed bill. On behalf of the Lasallian community, I thank the organizers for taking the initiative, as this will provide an opportunity to discuss the proposed bills, which will impact our usual academic life and student formation work. We also extend our gratitude to our resource persons for taking on our invitation to accompany us. As we continue with our work with the youth, I invite everyone to reflect and ask ourselves, why do we continue doing the things we do in NSTP? How do we find meaning in our formation work with students and partner institutions? I pray that we all will be guided by the Holy Spirit on our continuous work for social transformation and youth formation. Thank you, and Animo Lasal.
Maraming salamat po, Brother Oka, for giving us the closing remarks. And that concludes today's forum. Thank you again to our speaker and all our participants on Zoom, Facebook, and YouTube Live. So we apologize for not being able to ask Senator Win your questions. We will, of course, compile them and send them to his office. We would also like to thank the Philippine Society of NSTP Educators and Instructors, or PSNEI, De La Salle University, Ateneo de Manila University, University of Santo Tomas NSTP, UP Manila NSTP, UP Los Baños NSTP, UP Cebu NSTP, UP Visayas, UP Mindanao Office of Extension and Community Service, UP Open University, DZUP 1602, UP NCPAG Center for Leadership, Citizenship, and Democracy, and the NSTP Office of UP Diliman. And of course, everyone who has helped to make this Fora series possible. For those who missed or would like to revisit this forum episode, don't worry, because you can watch it on DZUP's Facebook page and YouTube channel. Just look for DZUP on Facebook and on YouTube. And kung nabitin kayo sa ating second installment ng Sanggunian, our third and final forum will provide a platform for NSTP students from across the country to be consulted regarding the mentioned bill. Lastly, to our participants, please don't forget to complete the evaluation form for this forum. You are able to see a QR code on your screen. The link is bit.ly/MROTC eval. The evaluation form will be accepting responses until Monday, September 4 at 5 p.m. Please make sure na tama po ang inyong mga detalye para po sa certificate. And mangyari pong manatili hanggang sa huli dahil nais natin i-share ang mga naging contributions ng NSTP program at iba't ibang universidad. NSTP programs ng iba't ibang universidad pagkatapos po ng ating credits. Ako po muli ang inyong host, Carl Sayat, at nagpapasalamat ako ng lubos sa inyong pagdalo sa Sanggunian Forum on Senate Bill number 2034, Reserved Officers Training Corps Act. Maraming salamat po.
Mindanao NSTP was established in 2002. So way back then, the Office of Extension and Community Service was created on that same year by virtue of a BOR resolution with an added function, the implementation of NSTP on campus. Yung memorable recollection that I have on the implementation of the program is that usually we do the session on a Saturday with the first batch of students of UP Mindanao. So at the night before, we brainstorm the topics that we will discuss the day after. So minsan inaabot kami ng almost midnight or early morning. Fortunately, we were able to survive the first year of implementation, and then later on we made it as a template, and then we were working hand in hand with the UP Los Baños, Ugnayan and Pahinuan. They helped us in the implementation of the literacy service, and our previous partnership with the Philippine Eagle and our presence in the UP Mindanao Land Grant also was contributory to becoming out of the CWTS, and then eventually the university decided to devolve it to the colleges. The program, we started actually offering LTS and CWTS, but the direction that we are going right now to some sort of align the NSTP implementation of UP Mindanao to what is mandated by law, which is to offer the ROTC and the other components.
At the moment, NSTP is housed as one of the programs under the Office of Extension and Community Service. We are planning to create a separate NSTP office with its director and coordinators for the different components. I'd like to thank the assistance of Prof. Dennis Kilala, UP Diliman NSTP Director, who facilitated the workshop for writing the syllabi for NSTP, especially the LTS and CWTS components, which we plan to implement starting school year 2023-2024. The write-up was participated by the faculty members of the 3 different colleges in UP Mindanao. We are also working on the ROTC implementation as part of the requirement of the new IRR. As part of our efforts to mobilize or organize our alumni in NSTP, we plan to propose the establishment of the NSRC so that we can tap and organize the NSTP graduates for community and public service activities of the university, especially here in Mindanao.
when the only notion constant is change, when information is obtainable with a single click of the mouse or a tap of a screen, humans seem to be at the center of it all, making them in sync with the changes, in constant motion. This is not limited to those living in cities whose hands seldom part with their gadgets. In rural areas, the innovations and discoveries in technologies are used to ease lives and bridge gaps in knowledge, skills, and practices. With the new knowledge and information being created, reproduced, and shared at a rapid pace, people constantly need to retool themselves to keep up with continuously changing work requirements. In today's digital age, people need to learn how to learn and learn anywhere and anytime. The University of the Philippines Open University, the fifth constituent unit of the University of the Philippines system, provides opportunities for people to pursue further studies through open and distance e-learning. In February 23, 1995, the University of the Philippines Open University was established. It is mandated to provide Filipinos all over the world wider access to quality higher education through open and distance e-learning, or ODEL. UPOU now offers various degree programs to learners located in more than 70 countries all over the world. These programs are under the Faculty of Education, the Faculty of Information and Communication Studies, and the Faculty of Management and Development Studies. UPOU also offers continuing education courses and massive open and distance e-learning courses. UPOU uses various information and communication technologies, computer programs and applications to deliver instructional content and connect teachers and learners all over the world. Now more than ever, UPOU continues to transcend borders and break barriers through constant generation of knowledge and open exchange of ideas. It persistently tries new mechanisms to reach a larger number of learners. It perseveres in mentoring learners who shall be change agents, equipped to participate in the co-creation of knowledge for the benefit of Filipino communities everywhere. True to its mission, UPOU shall continue to reinvent itself to provide 21st century education in an increasingly open world.
Halos 3 taon na ang nakalipas nang magsimula ang malawakang lockdown dulot ng pandemya. Tagal na, noong huli tayo ay naging malaya, nakikipagsalamuha at nakakasama ang ating mga kaklase at kaibigan. Parang panaginip na lamang ang panahon noong hindi natin kinatatakutan ng COVID-19. Ngayon, para na tayong nakakulong sa isang lugar na binubuo lamang ng pader ng ating mga silid. Kaugnay nito, halos 6 na buwan na ang nakalipas noong unang narinig namin ang mga boses ng mga nasa Malabon na higit din na naapektuhan ng pandemya. Base sa kanilang mga kwento, hindi lahat ng kabataan ay nabibigyan ng pagkakataong makapag-aral, makapagbasa, o kahit man lang makakain ng sapat at masustansya. Dito, nabuksan ng aming mga mata na siyang nagsimulang lumikha ng mga ideya na makapagbibigay serbisyo sa komunidad ng Barangay Concepcion sa lungsod ng Malabon. Halos 9 na linggo na rin ang aming ginugol upang makapaghanda ng mga materyales na makatutulong sa pag-aaral at pagbibigay motibasyon sa mga kabataan na magbasa at matutong makapaghanda ng mga masusustansyang pagkain. Dito, nabuhayan ang aming proyektong nakatuon sa pagtulong sa mga kabataan at sa kanilang mga magulang at tagapag-alaga. Dito, naisakatuparan ang malabon na pitit sa edukasyon, kaisipan at kalusugan para sa kabataan. Nagsimula bilang isang panungkala at planong konsepto ng kalaunan ay naging isang konkretong proyekto. Binubuo ng 4 na bahagi. Unang-una rito, ang aksyon malabon, kaisipan at kalusugan para sa kabataan, na nakatutok sa pagbuo at pagturo ng mga inihandang module para sa mga batang mag-aaral sa pamamagitan ng 2 online na sesyon. Kalakip ng mga sesyon na ito ay ang webinar na 3Ps o nasa pag-uunawa sa pagbabasa ang pag-asa at It's a Pact, palakasin ang kalusugan ng tahanan. Panghuli ay ang culminating session ng aming proyekto, ang Itbulaga, One for All for One. Bagaman hindi naging madali ang buong proseso, ito ay naging posible dahil sa walang hintong pagsisikap ng bawat miyembro ng pangkat NSTP LTS NO4 at sa walang sawang paggabay ni Sir Allen Jeffrey Saraza at sa tulong ni na Miss Jeline Levantino at Kagawad Eduardo Antoja Jr. Bukod dito, hindi magiging makabuluhan ang proyekto kung hindi dahil sa tulong na aming natanggap mula sa iba't ibang tao, kapamilya, kaibigan at kakilala. Naghawak kamay at nagkapit-bisig ang lahat upang masilayan ang napakalaking ngiti ng isang Malabonian. Malabon na piti. Sa unang bigkas at rinig, ay parang hinihiling lamang na sana'y masiyahan at mabusog ang lahat sa munting handog ng pangkat. Ngunit, ang katotohanan ay hinihiling namin na sana'y mabusog kayo ng pagmamahal na buong pusong ipinadama ng mga Lasalliano. Sa libo-libong mga duda, ang pagtulong sa kapwa ay naisigurado. At natitiyak namin hindi ito ang hudyat ng pagtatapos. Dahil habang may Lasalliano, may pusong handang tumulong sa bawat Pilipino. Ikaw, ano ang kwentong NSTP?
At first, NSTP seems to be an obligatory task, a requirement, a constitutional duty they need to fulfill. They need to wake up early in the morning, thinking that it's just an ordinary day to go through. Undertakings seem to be a routine. However, with pure intentions and clear understanding of the task at hand, something changed. Bricks and sands are not considered as materials that burdens the students, but those so-called burdens are now treated as the aspirations of the community. Brick by brick, they intricately place them to form a solid foundation for a better tomorrow. Every brush strokes sparks imagination and creativity for the community. Trees are planted to secure and nourish future generations. Books and stories come alive to spark hope to the thriving community. A few simple strides go a long mile. A treacherous terrain under the scorching heat of the sun, they all seem not to mind as the anticipation grows. As these students go inch closer and closer to perform their task, a sense of optimism of something better awaits them. And when they reach the solace place, a glance of the community offers a cool reminder that their presence alone can become so meaningful to countless individuals. Such simple human gestures from that moment can be such a life-changing experience. This is NSTP in USD. program that strives for noble causes, speaks of empowerment, embodies participatory development, hard work, passion, compassion, and commitment. Like the sands you sifted to produce fine grains, ultimately it inspires fine-tuning of one's personality. NSTP teach lessons in life that textbooks cannot provide. And this all began with a vision to fulfill the aspirations of the partner community. A program spawned forth that captures limitless possibilities, providing a gleam of hope that truly uplifts the collective spirit of the village. A program that counts purely on the talent, energy, enthusiasm of the students and the partner communities. This is when you, Tomasian students, will come to realize the high significance of what you do becomes a huge life-altering experiences to the multitude of individuals who come to touch lives with. Undeniably, you, NSTP students of UST, has all the power within to spark hope, to ignite change, and transform lives. This, with all certainty, will resonate through time. A legacy we want to leave that will surely echo in their minds.